Greetings, champions, and thank you for returning to our community. You recognize that sensation, right? When you're about to voice your thoughts, your pulse quickens, moisture appears on your fingertips, and your throat suddenly feels parched. That instant when you possess something meaningful to communicate, yet your mind protests. Absolutely not. Remain silent. Don't humiliate yourself. That's not caution at all. That's your fragile sense of self suffocating you. Throughout my earlier years, I occupied spaces alongside numerous individuals, while observing them commandeer attention, articulate themselves effortlessly, and obtain their objectives. Meanwhile, I remained there, questioning myself relentlessly about my inadequacies. What prevented me from mirroring their capabilities? Subsequently, I encountered something revolutionary, something documented by a brilliant thinker named Niccolò Machiavelli, roughly half a millennium prior. And that revelation changed everything for me. My obstacle wasn't inadequate belief in myself. My genuine challenge was an undermined sense of identity that had been implanted within me, resembling corrupted software, like destructive code functioning behind the scenes, draining my capacity without my awareness. And for example, subscribe to dark psychology. Decoded helps explain the psychological mechanism operating in that process. Consider your formative years momentarily. What principles were instilled within you? Demonstrate kindness consistently. Maintain quietude. Refrain from selfishness. Don't create upheaval. Hold back patiently. Don't seek excessively. Display modesty. Make yourself unimportant. Your guardians harbored positive intentions. Your instructors harbored positive intentions. Yet they transformed an uninhibited, courageous youngster into an individual requiring authorization for each decision. An individual awaiting selection. An individual contracting to enable others' contentment. Examine your current condition. You maintain silence when vocalization is necessary. You consent when your intuition shouts opposition. You compress yourself so the environment remains at ease. That's not character expression. That's encoding, destructive encoding. Machiavelli grasped something the masses haven't internalized. The marketplace doesn't celebrate the submissive. It exploits them. It surpasses them. It dismisses their identities immediately after departure. However, programming becomes erasable. Corrupted data can be eliminated. And that compromised sense of identity? It can be destroyed and substituted with something formidable. Throughout this presentation, I deconstruct 8 cognitive techniques rooted in Machiavellian philosophy. These represent more than straightforward suggestions. They constitute mental reprogramming. Remain engaged until the conclusion, because upon completion, you'll possess a comprehensive roadmap for metamorphosing into someone your contemporary self would not recognize. I encourage you to share this declaration in the comments section. I obliterate the corrupted code. Before exploring these methodologies, permit me to illuminate something virtually nobody grasps about what shapes your character and presentation. Your personality isn't representing your genuine essence. It's not permanent. It's not encoded biologically. Your personality constitutes merely an accumulation of narratives you've repeated perpetually until you accepted them as factual. I'm socially withdrawn. That constitutes a narrative. I'm insufficiently intelligent. That constitutes a narrative. I'm not somebody who expresses opinions vocally. That constitutes a narrative. I'm simply non-confident. That constitutes a narrative. You've circulated these narratives repeatedly throughout your existence, possibly throughout multiple decades, and presently they seem authentic. Except they're not authentic. They're simply recycled programming executing mechanically. A compromised identity reads as, I require acceptance from others. I cannot tolerate demanding situations. I'm unprepared currently. I require additional duration. I'm inadequate. A commanding identity reads as, I establish my own significance. I engage before complete preparation. I expand my capabilities through participation. My perspective regarding myself supersedes all others' perspectives. Identical individual, identical consciousness, contrasting narrative, contrasting existence. Here's the Machiavellian component requiring attention. Discontinue worrying about moral categorization or immoral tendencies. These designations limit your development. The singular meaningful inquiry remains. Are you accomplishing your desired effects? Do your movements yield consequences? Does your persona invoke recognition? That constitutes what we're constructing right now. Let's commence. Initial focus. Dismantle the compliant subordinate identity. Examine the expression, nice. Everyone desires to embody niceness. He demonstrates such graciousness. She possesses tremendous friendliness. Individuals display it as though it's an achievement. Nevertheless, let me divulge what niceness actually represents for most people. Niceness represents catastrophic anxiety regarding creating disturbance. Niceness represents subordinating your interests for everyone else. Niceness represents conditioning, telling you that denying requests means you're contemptible. That's not friendliness. That's being a utilized person, disguising it beneath geniality. Machiavelli conveyed something relevant. Humans are remarkably straightforward and comply readily with instantaneous impulses. So whoever intends to manipulate will consistently find victims prepared to surrender to deception. The friendly individual becomes the easiest victim in any gathering. They cannot reject requests. They cannot defend their moments. They cannot preserve their vitality. Every exploiter, every manipulator, every predatory entity understands precisely how to recognize them. Here's the cognitive breakthrough. Whenever you experience that instinctive inclination to accept, simply interrupt yourself. Just pause and contemplate one singular inquiry. Am I consenting because I genuinely desire to, or because I'm apprehensive about experiencing momentary discomfort? When the response is apprehension, you understand the appropriate response. Let me illustrate. Someone approaches you requesting participation in something this coming weekend. You'd arranged something. You'd scheduled rest, rejuvenation, and personal advancement, yet they're asking. And presently, that gravitational force toward acceptance emerges. Outdated programming. Accept. Discard your arrangements. Experience frustration throughout. End up exhausted for subsequent days. Contemporary programming. I'm unavailable this weekend. Perhaps at an alternative occasion. Recognize something crucial. You remained silent about justifications. You didn't express regret. You didn't bargain. You simply transmitted your determination and proceeded forward. Your updated framework. I'm not friendly in that manner. I'm reasonable and purposeful. Reasonable represents interacting with individuals respectfully. Purposeful represents safeguarding what's important to you. Begin minimally. Rather than instantaneous agreement, respond with, I'll deliberate on it. Acknowledge the unease. Live through it. Replicate the experience tomorrow. Each instance you defend your limitations, you fabricate an updated identity. I want you to share this affirmation. Reasonable, not gullible. Secondary focus. Restructure your internal dialogue. A dialogue persists within your consciousness perpetually. And for the majority, that dialogue functions as their principal adversary. It communicates like this. You will certainly make errors. Spectators will snicker. Who do you imagine you represent? You lack sufficient readiness. You're insufficient. That dialogue doesn't defend you. Tertiary concentration. Employ tactical personae. Here's something that individuals lacking potency never comprehend. You don't remain unchanging throughout every circumstance. They articulate statements like, "This represents my authentic temperament," or "I'm simply expressing genuineness." They weaponize truthfulness as justification to never shift, never evolve, never develop into something expanded. Machiavelli articulated, "Everyone observes your presentation. Scarcely anyone encounters your authentic nature." Influential individuals throughout civilization's timeline recognized that varying circumstances demand varying iterations of yourself. The combatant doesn't participate in conflict identically to how he engages with his offspring. The business person doesn't transact identically to how he participates in amusement with companions. Here's the methodology. Cultivate 3 psychological frameworks. You can transition between intentionally. Framework 1, the analytical mind. Utilize this when forming determinations, handling resources, or examining possibilities. Eliminate emotional influence. Examine information systematically. Inquire, what outcome am I pursuing here? Remove connection to validation. Maintain connection exclusively to consequences. Framework 2, the immovable presence. Utilize this when somebody endeavors to antagonize you, demean you, or implicate you in turmoil. Nothing penetrates. You examine their deportment, resembling a researcher observing a phenomenon. Your composure transforms into your dominance. Their provocations scatter like precipitation against stone. Framework 3, the observer mode. Utilize this when encountering novel circumstances. Unfamiliar setting, unfamiliar gatherings, unfamiliar terrain. You articulate minimally, roughly 20%, while absorbing extensively, approximately 80%. You're collecting intelligence. Who maintains expertise? What constitute the unspoken norms? What possibilities present themselves? The observer gathers comprehension before participating. Prior to any consequential experience, deliberately select your framework. Communicate it internally. This circumstance necessitates the analytical mind. Or, this circumstance necessitates the immovable presence. This eliminates the falsehood that you're confined to, performing identically perpetually. You're not primarily introverted. You're not primarily reactive. You're not primarily uncomfortable. Those represented automatic configurations you were unaware you could alter. Currently, you decide. Determination represents capability. I want you to communicate this affirmation. I choose my framework. Quaternary concentration. Terminate your yearning for acknowledgement. You crave validation from individuals surrounding you. You require their affirmation, their expressions of approval, their communications affirming satisfactory performance. You require recognition from everybody perpetually, without pause, endlessly. This requirement transforms you into predictable material, controllable material, vulnerable material. Machiavelli transmitted, "Whoever desires obedience must understand commanding." You cannot direct your existence when you're perpetually requesting authorization from others. You cannot maneuver with vigor when you necessitate celebration following each advancement. Here's the rehabilitation protocol. Throughout every 24-hour cycle for 3 decades, execute one singular activity that might produce bewildered expressions. Not catastrophic matters, merely unimportant acts of autonomy. Request something non-traditional from your dining location without articulating your justification. Don clothing that deviates somewhat from your standard selections. Communicate a perspective without expressing contrition regarding your thoughts. Vacate a gathering whenever you desire departure, not whenever remaining individuals depart. Each unimportant deed instructs your biological regulation, something critical. Disapproval doesn't signify expiration. An astonished glance doesn't terminate your existence. Somebody disagreeing doesn't obliterate your universe, your contemporary operational framework. Viewpoints constitute intelligence, not requirements. You can absorb what individuals believe. You can deliberate regarding it, yet you're not responsible for conformance. You're not responsible for restructuring whenever somebody exhibits skepticism. The individual who requires no validation remains immune to domination. They remain immune to regulation through community stress. They remain immune to restraint through apprehension regarding perception. That constitutes your metamorphosis. I want you to communicate this affirmation. Authorization becomes superfluous. Fifth, concentration. Transform apprehension into navigation. Apprehension functions as the substantial differentiator. It segregates those who execute from those who fantasize, those who transform from those who persist unchanged. Presently, your consciousness interprets apprehension as prohibition. Apprehension materializes, and you decelerate dramatically. You recoil. You manufacture justifications for postponement. Yet here's what you're overlooking. In contemporary existence, apprehension rarely represents authentic danger. It represents personality. It represents appearance. It represents possibility that circumstances might not transpire flawlessly. Machiavelli communicated, "Nothing magnificent ever materialized absent hazard. Every substantial accomplishment necessitates uncertainty. Every uncertainty ignites apprehension. When you retreat from apprehension, you retreat from accomplishment." Here's the revised interpretation. Apprehension doesn't constitute caution. Apprehension functions as orientation indicating your development. What generates dread right now? Articulating publicly. That sensation indicates sway. Commencing something original. That sensation indicates liberation. Distributing your creations externally. That sensation indicates consequence. Apprehension delineates your boundary. The majority expend their complete existence distancing themselves from that boundary. You'll propel yourself toward it. Functional approach. When apprehension emerges, don't endeavor to rationalize it away. Don't anticipate bravery. Alternatively, communicate this internally. Apprehension indicates I'm at my threshold. Development emerges nearby. I participate right now. Subsequently, calculate backward. 5. Quaternary, tertiary, binary, singular, and execute preceding your consciousness manufactures justifications. Establish this regulation. When an activity won't generate bodily trauma, and the exclusive factor preventing me constitutes apprehension regarding appearing inadequate, I must execute it within the subsequent 24 hours. Maintain this regulation for 180 days. Your self-perception will shift dramatically. I want you to communicate this affirmation. Apprehension points the direction. 6th, concentration. Segregate your personality from achievements. Here's the entrapment immobilizing aspiring individuals. They've intertwined their significance with consequences. When I execute and succeed, I'm valuable. When I execute and don't succeed, I'm insignificant. Consequently, they don't execute. They anticipate. They investigate perpetually. They examine endlessly, because executing and disappointing feels destructive to their essence. This represents irrationality. Machiavelli transmitted, all possible measures contain uncertainty. Therefore, prudence isn't avoiding hazard, rather computing uncertainty and performing conclusively. Each endeavor incorporates unpredictability. Each effort might not materialize as imagined. Should you require confirmed prosperity preceding your engagement, you'll remain motionless indefinitely. Here's the personality modification. Discontinue assessing yourself via what manifests. Commence assessing yourself via what you initiate. Antiquated personality. I embody prosperity when I achieve victory. I embody inadequacy when I experience defeat. Contemporary personality. I embody somebody who participates. Consequences represent intelligence, not evaluation. Preceding any consequential undertaking, establish this cognition. Regardless of what manifests, I triumph because I progressed, while others remained stationary. I comprehended what they'll never comprehend. I developed in manners they'll never develop. When everybody else participates in the game of avoiding appearing incompetent, you're participating in the game of accumulating comprehension at maximum velocity. When everybody else awaits flawless circumstances, you're participating in the game of comprehend faster through executing extensively. The individual who completes 100 imperfect endeavors will consistently surpass the individual who completes 10 flawless ones. Regular examination. Upon initiating each week, identify tertiary endeavors you've been circumventing because you're uncertain regarding success. Finish all tertiary prior to the week's conclusion. Document exclusively whether you finished them, not whether they functioned. Construct your personality on participation, not consequences. Share this affirmation. I compute participation, not consequences. 7th concentration. Construct certainty through documentation. Here's precisely why the majority of personal development guidance doesn't work. It necessitates conviction regarding matters absent substantiation. Embrace yourself, depending on what? You're self-assured. My background communicates otherwise. Maintain positivity. My consciousness comprehends when I'm fabricating. Authentic certainty doesn't materialize from aspirations. It materializes from substantiation. Your consciousness functions as an evaluator, demanding substantiation preceding belief modification. Machiavelli transmitted. Humans assess via observation instead of by examination. Your consciousness evaluates you, dependent upon what it perceives you accomplish, not what it hears you articulate. When you circumvent demanding circumstances, your consciousness determines you cannot manage demanding circumstances. No declaration transforms that. Here's the technique for reversal. Deliberately manufacture substantiation. Establish a documentation record. Each evening, transcribe tertiary particular instances from your daytime when you persevered despite opposition. I commenced the endeavor rather than investigating extensively. I articulated when I preferred silence. I finished the physical conditioning when I lacked inclination. I proceeded through discomfort rather than surrendering. Unimportant entries perpetually without neglect. Following 3 decades, you maintain 90 pieces of substantiation that you're somebody who proceeds when circumstances get demanding. Following 90 days, you maintain 270 pieces. This substantiation remains irrefutable. When your antiquated, vulnerable personality endeavors to communicate, you're incapable of managing this. You indicate the documentation. Genuinely, I possess 270 illustrations demonstrating your inaccuracy. Your consciousness cannot dispute information. It requires renovation regarding your identification. This represents certainty manufacturing. You're not expecting certainty to emerge. You're producing the substantiation that compels certainty to materialize. I want you to communicate this affirmation. I gather substantiation consistently Eighth, concentration. Establish the dominant perspective. Everything we've examined constructs toward this concluding component. This constitutes the pinnacle. The majority traverse existence in reactive positioning. They penetrate gatherings expecting positive circumstances. They navigate experiences hoping to navigate them successfully. They inhabit hoping the marketplace treats them gently. This represents hunted creature mentality, and the marketplace senses it. Machiavelli articulated, commanding reverence surpasses earning affection when simultaneous achievement remains impossible. This doesn't signify generating dread in individuals around you. It signifies recognizing that within every circumstance exists a framework. Either you establish that framework, or somebody else manipulates it. Either you're the individual possessing selections, or you're the individual acquiring scraps. The conversion. Terminate being somebody, hoping circumstances progress favorably. Transform into somebody that alternative parties must acknowledge seriously. Here's the interior programming to establish preceding any consequential circumstance. Contemplate this internally. I'm not present anticipating recognition. I'm present evaluating whether this merits my duration. They must demonstrate worthiness to me. You don't vocalize this. You don't demonstrate arrogance. You merely maintain this framework internally. It transforms everything regarding your presentation. Because here's what nobody communicated to you. You maintain significance. Your duration remains restricted. Your consciousness stays valuable. Your vitality stays restricted. Anybody acquiring availability to you receives something meriting possession. The majority never contemplated themselves using this framework. They experience appreciation for any circumstance, relief regarding any reception, desperation regarding any recognition. That operational framework terminates now. When you penetrate any circumstance, you're not requesting. You're not anticipating. You're evaluating whether your presence serves this. This interior framework restructures your exterior presentation. Your posture transforms. Your observation solidifies. Your communication carries gravity. Individuals experience it, preceding your articulation. You don't proclaim this dominance. You emanate it. I want you to communicate this affirmation. I embody the advantage. If you participated in this presentation, felt inspiration, and then slide back into your old patterns tomorrow, it becomes entertainment. Another video consumed, another hour spent, nothing changed. This was never about amusing you. The purpose is to restructure you. Here is your non-negotiable responsibility. Within the next 24 hours, choose one component from this presentation and execute it. Not analyze it. Execute it. Refuse something you would normally tolerate. Turn one fear-based thought into a command and follow it. Choose one framework before your next significant interaction. Do one small action without caring about other people's opinions. Start one task you have been postponing. Begin your personal log tonight with 3 entries. Walk into your next interaction holding the dominant frame. 1 execution. 24 hours. 0 excuses. Your old identity will resist. It will manufacture reasons to delay, whisper that later is wiser, claim that more reflection is needed. That voice is corrupted code trying to survive. End it with action. Machiavelli understood what most never internalize. The marketplace belongs to those who move, while others think, who execute, while others debate, who decide, while others doubt. The fragile self asks, how do I become confident one day? The commanding self asks, how do I become impossible to ignore today? You already have the roadmap. The remaining question is whether you will apply it or abandon it. Your life is a constant choice between dormancy and activation, between accepting inherited programming and deliberately rewriting your own code, between existing and inhabiting your potential. Most people choose dormancy. They move through routine, meet obligations, and never discover what they were capable of. Machiavelli studied power and influence and saw the dividing line between those who shape circumstances and those shaped by them. It is not IQ, privilege, or luck. It is identity awareness, recognizing that your personality is not fixed, your abilities are not predetermined, and you are continuously constructing yourself through choices and commitments. Think about who you were 10 years ago. You are different now. You changed and grew, yet still assume your future is fixed, and that 5 years from now, you will be essentially the same. That illusion keeps people trapped. Your identity is in constant motion, either shrinking or expanding, hardening into weakness, or sharpening into authority. The direction is not pre-written. You steer it with what you do next. Your real circumstances are created by your psychological framework and inner narrative, not your education, finances, or starting point. High performers do not always come from better origins. They build better inner code, rewrite their self-talk, destroy corrupted programming, and install superior patterns. You can do the same, not someday after more credentials or capital, but now. Transformation does not start with conditions. It starts with decision. Decide your identity is no longer submissive, and it stops acting submissively. Decide fear no longer rules your choices and it loses authority. Decide to act before you feel ready, and you begin to move. The marketplace responds to decisiveness and execution, not hesitation and theory. Those who glide through pressure and consistently achieve are not free of fear or doubt. They built a different relationship with fear and stopped believing that capability appears only after confidence. Confidence is born from repeated action. The distance between understanding and transformation is the distance between your current self and your future self, crossed only by consistent execution, not perfect, polished action, but messy, uncomfortable movement taken before you feel prepared. That is what most will never do. This presentation is a starting point, not a finish line. Everything here is meaningless unless you turn it into behavior and do something new. Those who truly change are not special. They simply convert insight into motion, move through resistance, act in fear, and rewrite their narrative until their life becomes unrecognizable. That possibility is available now. Your future identity pivots on a single decision. Continue consuming ideas or step into execution. Terminate the old script with action. Become impossible to overlook. Then pass this activation to someone who needs it. You become the person you are actively constructing. Your transformation begins the moment you decide to move.